Hello and welcome to ReggieTake.com podcast number 24. Have you seen the new Ghostbusters movie? Have you seen Star Trek Beyond? Well, my guest and I have both seen them. We both have our opinions. We liked one more than the other, but the other one wasn't as sucky as we thought it was. Joining me today is my guest and constant returning co-host, James from the True Believers.
Hey, nice to be back, and phenomenal intro, Reggie. I just absolutely loved it.
In case you're wondering what the phenomenal intro was, I was tongue-tied, and this is like take number 5 of trying to get this started.
Hey, man, it's all good.
If I was ever to put out the whole raw versions of these podcasts, we would not sound as good as what it seems like.
Yikes.
Yeah. You saw the new Ghostbusters movie. I've seen the new Ghostbusters movie. It's gotten a rating of 73% on Rotten Tomatoes. It wasn't as bad as I initially thought it was going to be. I'll admit I went into the theater with major low expectations. That and also with a little trepidation of like, yeah, I'm not going to like this. This is going to suck. They're remaking it. They're not doing anything with the original movie. All the guys back from the original movie are in different cameo roles. I'm just not going to like this. And when I walked out of the theater, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I was too. I actually enjoyed the movie for the most part. First off, it's not as good as the original. No one thought it would be.
No.
It's pretty good.
There was some funny moments.
Funny. Oh, yeah.
My biggest problem with the movie, besides I think they still could have done the movie they did and still tried to connect it to the
Make
other
it a
two.
sequel, yeah.
Make it a sequel, but we'll deal with that here in a little bit. My problem was some of the comedy between the two ladies were some of the characters would get in those kind of, I want to call it Saturday Night Live rants. Just kind of like unnecessary.
It did kind of feel like that.
Unnecessary back and forth about something, and it just go on like longer than needed. And I felt those particular type of scenes could have gone away in my book. About the second or third time it happened, I was like, oh, come on, we get it. You guys have been in Saturday Night Live or on Saturday Night Live, and you're comedians. You're good at what you do. We get it. Move on. Yeah. That was kind of my thought. But it was not a bad movie.
No, not at all. I actually really liked the first half of the movie a lot. And then once this... Oh, go ahead.
Since you just said you liked the first half, I thought once they got past a certain point in the movie and they got more towards the second half of the movie, that's when I started enjoying it more.
That's really interesting, yeah.
Because
we both kind of like the opposite ends better.
Because I felt they were still trying to play too much, give the audience what they wanted to see in the first half of the movie. Yeah. Kind of the scene with the ghost and coming up to it at the beginning, the puking with, I could have done without. But it's just certain elements in the first half of the movie I felt they were trying to almost play too hard as a remake.
Yeah.
But once they got past a certain point, it seemed like the movie kind of came into its own. And that's when I kind of started more enjoying it than I did the first half.
Yeah. There were a lot of cameos of the original.
Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, which Sigourney Weaver didn't come in until the very end of the movie.
She had a great cameo. I really liked. They might just make her a character.
Ernie Hudson.
Yeah, I liked his.
Which that was a unique cameo because he actually ends up being the uncle who gave Leslie Jones
of the car,
the hearse. So that was a unique way of tying in.
That was really good, actually.
That was pretty good. Annie Potts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked her. Yeah. She was a receptionist again.
At the hotel desk clerk, yeah.
And she was just as snotty and rude as the first time.
And then, of course, you got other stars in there. Ozzy Osbourne, Al Roker, and some others that were in there.
Now, supposedly I missed this, but you caught it. Harold Ramis.
Yes.
They had an homage to him. Not so much a cameo, but I guess sort of a cameo.
You had to look quick. Yeah. It wasn't up there for more than about 10, 15 seconds. I say even 10 seconds or less.
Yeah.
It's in the early part of the movie with Kristen Wiig's character in her office before she gets, or as she's getting fired from her job, and there's a bronze bust kind of out the door of her office there, and it's of Harold Ramis. So, but you had to look quick, and it was in the first part of the movie.
Yeah.
Of course, they had Slimer back.
Yeah.
I guess, okay,
You had to have him. He was on the cartoon.
Actually, in the cartoon, he was kind of a major player.
He was a good guy. I don't really remember the cartoon that well, but I do remember when I watched the movie, the cartoon was on when I was really little, and then when I was about 7 or 8, I watched the movie on VHS, and I was surprised that Slimer was a bad guy, and he was scary.
Ray, he's slimy. Save me some. Kind of what I found interesting.
Marshmallow Man had a cameo too. The Stay Puft Marshmallow.
Yes, as a big balloon.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny because he kind of fell over.
Yeah.
I was kind of found it interesting that Kate McKinnon, the tech guru of the group in this movie, it seemed like they kind of advanced equipment pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
But it's like, they could do it first time out. they had working things, and then they kind of almost too good at what she was supposed to be doing. And I kind of found that a little, I don't know if I like that part, but testing of the equipment in the alleyway, that was kind of
pretty funny.
Kind of funny. I don't know. What'd you think of the other cameos? Bill Murray.
I like Bill Murray's. I hope he didn't die in it. That was kind of weird.
Yeah,
and I also noticed, by the way, I do have a little bit of umbrage with that because the ghost throws him out the window, and then they kind of talk about it, and then they don't bring it up again. And like, if a guy falls out your window, first off, we don't know if he's dead or alive, but either way, like, you'd think that the mayor would bring that up while they're talking to them, like, what the fuck. Then, if you notice later, the window is fixed. I thought they were so poor, but the window's fixed. Not only that, but then later, what's her name? Kate McKinnon. She falls out the window. You guys are doing the window gag twice? Like, what? But I did like Bill Murray's. I liked how Bill Murray was a skeptic. Again, I hope he didn't die in it. That'd be awful. But
yeah, and then Dan Aykroyd as a cabbie.
I like that. Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Because he made some reference about from the
like
first
he
movie,
knew
exactly what they needed to use or type of ghost it was. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, you saw this just the other night, and it's been over a week for me since I've seen Ghostbusters. So I'm trying to pull it back into my brain. If I was to give this movie a grade, I'd say it's probably a B minus, maybe C plus.
Oh, that's what I would do. I'd give it a B minus. Yeah,
it's not the greatest movie in the world.
It was a decent movie to watch. Like, I laughed.
It's a typical summer popcorn movie.
Yeah,
because after its opening weekend, the Sony's president of distribution came out and said, while nothing has been officially announced, there's no doubt in my mind that a sequel will happen. He also said that Ghostbusters is expected to become an important franchise, which I kind of knew that from just what Sony was talking before the movie was released, that they were wanting to branch out. But
well, at the end of the movie, I'm going to go on a little rant in a minute, but not about this movie, but movies in general.
Okay.
At the end of this movie, after the credits, she picks up, what do they call it, EMP or something?
I don't know.
She's listening.
Leslie Jones' character is listening, yeah.
Yeah, she's listening to, I call it white noise, recorded, and she goes, guys, what is Zool, okay? And it's like, oh, yeah, that's going to be for the sequel. Here's the thing, and I don't have a problem with that, but I've noticed ever since Batman Begins, this has been a trend in Hollywood where they do like franchise movies where
they reboot it.
They wait till the second movie to bring the big villain. And what's weird about Ghostbusters, since there's only two villains, they're still doing it. I mean, think about it. The Joker and the Dark Knight, that was the first one. And then Professor Moriarty didn't...
Oh, Moriarty in
the second Sherlock Holmes. Lex Luthor in the second Superman.
Right.
The Green Goblin technically appeared in the second Amazing Spider-Man, or Oscorp did. I know that movie's a mess.
You think,
and then now this, Green Lantern, they were like, we're going to wait to reveal that Sinestro's the villain until the second movie. Why? No one knows that much about Green Lantern. Just make Sinestro the villain in the first one. It probably would have been a lot better to have a villain that makes sense. They do it all the time. Now this one, it seems like, of course, Star Trek with Khan.
Yeah.
That's been this trend now.
The iconic villain.
It's really weird.
Would you have stayed through the credits if I hadn't texted you saying if you go see Ghostbusters, stay through the credits? Because anymore, I stay through the credits regardless, not knowing if they will or will not.
I would have. The whole post-credits thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this isn't the first movie that did it, but it was the one that kind of kick-started this, Pirates of the Caribbean. Also, the first superhero movie that did it. Do you know what that is?
I could probably take a wild guess, but I doubt I'd be right.
Go ahead.
I would have to say Iron Man, but I don't think that would be right.
Nope.
So.
And Iron Man was the one that solidified that, yes, every movie has to have these now, and if you don't have them, you make everyone mad. Some of the Avengers movies don't, like Ultron didn't for some reason.
No.
But they had the mid-credits.
They had the mid-credit, but after that, nothing at the very end.
Speaking of, Avengers was like, we're going to have a mid-credits and a post-credit. Iron Man was the one that made it official that you have to do this now, but X-Men 3 was the first one to have a post-credits. The first superhero movie.
God, it's been so long since I've watched X-Men 3 that I wouldn't even remember that there was one.
Because it's such a terrible movie, but yeah, that one is the first one where...
So what was that scene in that movie? Were they setting up something else?
They were setting up the return of Professor X, because remember, he dies in that movie, but he has Mariah McTaggart. He's talking about my friend Mariah McTaggart is doing some sort of research on a man in a coma, and he's brain damaged. This brain damaged man who essentially is brain dead, but he's on on equipment.
Okay.
Sounds kind of messed up, but it's for science, I guess. Well, anyway, at the end of the movie, Charles Xavier possesses him. He says, Mariah. And by the way, this Mariah McTaggart looks like she's the same age as the one on First Class. X-Men has like the worst continuity.
Yeah, you said that a couple podcasts
Like
back.
it's pretty bad. It's Fox or whatever. As long as they give me Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart, I'm all right. But
From the good folks who brought you Fantastic Four.
you don't see the patient, but at the end you hear him say Mariah, and she's like Charles, and that's the end. That doesn't explain why in the Wolverine and X-Men Days of Future Past why he looks exactly like Charles Xavier and is in a wheelchair. It doesn't explain that, but at the same time it's like whatever, who cares? X-Men 3 sucked. Stuff happened. Jean Grey did a bunch of bad stuff. That's all you need to remember.
And Wolverine feels guilty for...
Yeah, that's all you need to remember. Don't bother thinking about anything else.
Says this recording, Ghostbusters has grossed $92 million in the U.S. and $128 million worldwide on a $144 million budget. That's as much as Ghostbusters has made so far.
That's not very good.
I guess not. I don't know.
I don't know, actually, because
here's
how
the
long
thing.
has it been out? A week?
It came out on July 15th. So
I
it's
don't
been
know
out.
if that's bad or good, honestly.
Well, see, here's the thing. It's lost out on a huge foreign
Yes.
market because China, they don't believe in ghosts and that kind of crap. China's not even letting it play in any of their theaters at all. And
Really?
that's been one of the bigger
I'm pretty
overseas
sure
markets.
Chinese people believe in ghosts.
But anyway,
I've seen Big Trouble Little China.
as far as the
But
worldwide
their
market.
government doesn't
Yeah,
want to show it.
yeah, the government. Well,
Boy,
they also,
like the
which
Chinese market is weird.
but what I didn't know about it is this is not really uncommon because the Chinese government didn't let the first two Ghostbusters in the 80s
Yeah.
ever play over there either. So
Well, like, they've gotten more strict. It's just like with the Iron Man 3 thing. I think that's part of the reason, I think that's a lot of the reason initially why they didn't want the Mandarin to be Chinese.
didn't want to piss off the China
Yeah.
government. Yeah.
Then, Shane Black did his own take and
Yeah.
used that as a kind of a metaphor for Hollywood and whitewashing and different aspects, which I like. I thought it was brilliant. But
And
how many times do I need to talk about that movie?
Yeah, and you know my feelings on that one.
I
already.
know.
But I guess China is considered one of the bigger markets now needed for the bottom line of these studio movies. And when a studio can't get their movie into China, it hurts the overall. I guess nowadays the foreign markets outside the U.S. are really become more critical for the studios than the U.S. box office. To a certain point, it used to be the U.S. market was the critical one, and the rest of the world didn't matter as much. But now it's kind of flip-flopped.
Started that.
I don't know. So that's going to possibly hurt the overall bottom line for Ghostbusters. But it sounds like regardless of what this movie brings in, they're moving forward anyway.
Maybe they had to expect that out of the budget.
Maybe Sony's also expecting might be a little backlash to this movie. So no matter what, unless it just did a Fantastic Four number, they were going to move forward with their plans regardless and see how the second movie does. I don't know.
I guess we should also talk about all the controversy that came with this movie before it came out.
Yeah,
or
but
have we talked enough?
But I think you and I didn't have the problems what most people had. Most people, I think, had the problem because it was four women as the main characters, where you and I didn't really care about who was playing or the characters. It was more or less we didn't want it to be a remake. We wanted it to be
ridiculous.
We wanted
and
to
actually,
be
I gotta wonder if there's a part where they posted a video on the movie, and she looks online and she says, "Read the comments," and one of the comments was, what was it? These bitches ain't gonna kill no ghosts or something. And it's like, I wonder if that was like a nod to all the like stupid comments they got.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure it was.
had to be.
But the internet is full of terrible people. The world is full of terrible people.
Right, but the internet will also bring out the trollers, so to speak, who just hate on everything or looking just to make negative posts, just to incite some comments, I guess. So, fortunately, we have none at reggiestake.com.
Yeah, we don't have any people that comment.
No.
At all. No, I mean, that whole thing was ridiculous, but it was expected. And I think, you know what? Don't feel too sorry for them. I think when they made that decision, they were making a statement.
Right.
And good for them. Now, the issue is, if only the movie would have been like, that made the bar even higher. Now you got to put all these misogynistic trolls in their place. And it is a good movie. It's, like I said, a B- movie, which is good for a summer action movie, but it would have had to have been like awesome A A movie in order to really shut down everyone.
I just think for the storyline they did, even though they tried to set it apart and make it their own, not connected to the first two, I saw parts where they still could have done the movie the way they did it and still had it connected.
I did too.
To the first two. You know, instead of them creating the whole idea of busting ghosts on their own, I think I made mention this before, why can't they say, hey, this has been tried once before, I think we can do better than this, you know, whatever, and then let the cameos be of the original guys as the original characters, of them going saying, we think we can revive your business, but we'll do the work.
Yeah.
It's something of that nature.
Even like how the government, they were saying that Homeland Security knew there was a ghost or something.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so if the government wants to keep it quiet, the government could have easily found a way to shut people up over the 1980s incident and said that it was a hoax.
Yeah.
And all that. And then these girls find out that wasn't a hoax. That was real.
Could have gone to Dan Aykroyd. It's like, I can't talk about this.
No.
And then finally get him
That would have actually been pretty interesting. It would have been about like conspiracies and stuff. I think that's what they should have done. But at the same time, it is weird because if you go back to old movies like back in the day, you know, after 10 years, they'd make sometimes less, they'd remake a movie without even thinking about it. Everyone thinks that Hollywood is constantly making remakes now, but they used to do it all the time too. And part of the reason why was because you'll never see a talkie sequel to a silent movie. They will, if there was a silent movie, they remade it as a talkie. And then film and audio quality got better, remake it. Color, remake it. Just kind of the way it was. Once home video came in,
I think that's when people really started noticing it more and more.
well, yeah, and I mean, because it's like, back then you could only see, like, I know they didn't make a King Kong remake until the 70s, but I'm just using it.
77, yeah.
I'm just using the original 1930s King Kong as an example. You couldn't really see movies like that unless like your local theater was playing it on a matinee on like a Saturday. Like, oh, okay, I'll go watch that. Or once TV came out, if they just happened to broadcast it. So like up until the 80s, I know there was home video in the 70s, but no one had it.
The 80s is when VHS started becoming affordable to the normal household.
And that's the first time you could watch your favorite movies whenever you wanted. And Ghostbusters was one of everyone's favorite movies, so everyone watched it. And their kids watched it. You get it on DVD,
right,
and Blu-ray, and so like everyone's seen it a million times. So for us, it's like, why would you remake this? But well, the movie is 30 years old. Granted, I still think a sequel would have been better, but it is really interesting.
Oh yeah,
how it is now,
and it's interesting the people's take on what should and should not be remade, and what people are happy with and what they're not happy with. And
Ghostbusters is held at very high regard.
It's kind of like those Indiana Jones movies or the Star Wars movies. Certain movies that will not or should not be touched. And same way with Back to the Future. Universal has been interested in wanting to, quote, redo the Back to the Future movies at some point. But Robert Zemeckis, whoever's all behind the original Back to the Future trilogy, I guess they did something the right way, that as long as they're still around, they have final say if anything can be done with those movies. And they've said as long as they're alive and got breath in their body, those movies will not be redone, at least not during their lifetime. Which I think is good for them, because instead of selling out and going, yeah, sure, make more money off of this, they're saying, no, there's no need for them to be remade. I mean, because what could you do to improve them anyway in the first place, other than possibly a little bit better special effects? Unless you come up with some unique aspect to the story, I don't see anyone wanting to go see it in the first place. I'm sorry, but Marty McFly and Doc Brown being played by who they were played by will be so compared to if they ever tried it that I just don't see.
Oh, and the thing is, you know, one thing that I think that we forget about is there's only 7 stories in literature, 7 stories that are told in various different ways. It's something like that. Dude, just make another time travel story and don't call it Back to the Future. I mean, we say it like it's so easy, but the fact is, you and I both know name recognition sells.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in these days. I don't know if Super 8 did that well, you know, all these newer movies. I don't know. Cloverfield did pretty good.
I don't know about the new Cloverfield 10, and I never saw the original Cloverfields.
It's okay. I mean, it's a found footage movie, but
it's
probably the best of the found footage movies, honestly, but it's not great.
Those movies never really been my cup of tea. So.
Well, it's hard for me to suspend my disbelief that no point do these people ever, like, while they're being chased by ghosts or monsters or whatever, ever put down the fucking camera. I just can't believe that.
Speaking of iconic movies or franchises.
Oh, nice segue.
Thank you.
That's very good.
I worked hard at that. Star Trek Beyond, the 13th movie in the film franchise of Star Trek.
Boy, and by the way, talk about lucky number 13. I forgot that that's the 13th. What a great
And
movie.
technically, if you want to go by even and odd, it's an odd number to Star Trek movie.
It's also the third movie in the new trilogy, and third movies are, quote, always the worst.
Yeah.
This one is so good. I mean, this movie is amazingly good. This is an A movie, A plus movie easily.
Okay, there were some elements of Star Trek Beyond. It still held and resembled, obviously, what we're familiar with from the first two movies. Mm-hmm. It still had plenty of action, but I think in the same sense, they were able to bring more of the story in.
Yeah.
Carl Urban's Dr. McCoy got a lot better play and feel on this movie than he ever did on Into Darkness.
He was almost written out of that movie.
Almost.
So weird.
Whoever's idea it was to put Spock and McCoy together.
Oh my God, yeah, perfect.
I'm hoping it was Simon Pegg's idea.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
To put those two together and finally get to see that relationship kind of build.
Yeah.
Was awesome. I also like the fact that you finally got to see kind of the Kirk-Spock relationship after the first, even maybe the second movie I was hoping to see in this one. Yeah. They were finally a team. They were working together.
Yeah.
There was not this constantly backstabbing the other one because Spock thought Kirk was in the wrong. No arguments between the two, no fighting between the two. They worked like you expect those two to work together. A well-oiled machine in a certain sense.
That's really.
And that's what I was hoping to see, and this is what I got.
That's really that is actually the problem with the second one. The second one is not a bad movie, but the second one was still in the same vein as the first one. The first movie was a great Kickstarter, but by the time the second one came out, we were kind of expecting it to be more natural, like feel more like Star Trek, and it didn't.
There are certain parts of Into Darkness I see why they did it.
Yeah.
You still needed to find that whole storyline of Kirk trying to find out what it's really like to be a captain and that he wasn't truly ready to be a full captain and what it meant to take responsibility. I think that part of it needed to be played out, which they did. The part that they could have avoided easily in my book was the villain, which we've discussed before in our last podcast and podcast before that, of using Khan.
Yeah.
That's where they went wrong.
They didn't go wrong with the actor. Great
Cumberbatch
actor.
was a great actor, but it's just using Khan as the villain was the cheap way out. I loved Beyond. The whole tearing up of the Enterprise was
Have you noticed
was
that
spectacular.
all the villains are now all the villains are some sort of Marvel characters? Even technically Eric Bana, because he was the original Hulk. I know that's
right. Of course, Cumberbatch before he ever became Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange,
and now you've got Idris, who plays the gatekeeper
Heimdall.
on Thor, and his character really had an interesting backstory as they went further along into the movie, which was quite different for a villain. I really thought the space station Yorktown. Now
my gosh,
that was
wonderful.
an interesting way of doing a space station.
Yeah,
I mean, kind of multi-dimensional. Kind of gave you that whole Inception look, but at the same time, it wasn't Inception, and just the whole sphere with that was like, no, that's a space station I think I could get used to living on because that was just so cool.
Yeah.
Now, all the outside shots for that space station of the Yorktown was shot over in Dubai.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, they said where they shot that. So it's like, okay, because I saw where they spent like 2 weeks shooting in the...
We ought to get an apartment in Dubai.
Yeah, only if you're like a millionaire.
Have you heard in Dubai they made their own palm tree-shaped island?
I think I've heard something about that.
They've got more money than they know what to do with. Like, they made a palm tree-shaped island, and environmentalists are like, that water's got to go somewhere. It might flood Dubai. Like, you can't just like put an island there and think that the water's just going to disappear. No, it's going to move somewhere.
And of course, Beyond did what I've always complained about Star Trek, and Beyond's no different. It seems about every third to fourth movie they destroy an Enterprise.
They did
in the movie.
Yeah, and that's funny. We brought that up.
And they destroyed this one. It's like, okay, fine, I guess, but it just seems like
because they did it on Star Trek 3 and they did it in First Contact.
No, they did it. Well, they did it in Star Trek 3. You didn't get a new Enterprise to the end of Star Trek 4. So all of Star Trek 5 and 6, you had Enterprise A of the original timeline. Mm-hmm. So then when you get to the next movie of Generations, they destroy Enterprise D.
Okay.
So that's technically the third movie. They destroyed another Enterprise. Granted, it wasn't the same Enterprise, but still Enterprise nonetheless. And then you went, I guess you went First Contact and then Nemesis. And Nemesis, I thought, oh, great, they're going to destroy the Enterprise E, but they didn't. They just mangled the hell out of it.
Well, I'm glad they didn't at least. With this one, they're just like, it's destroyed, whatever. Instead of like, in every movie, they're like, no, the Enterprise.
But they did one hell of a job trying to destroy that. I mean, that was the most unique way of just slowly tearing that ship down,
Yeah.
section by section.
I really like. Were those things drones or were they flown by people? They swarmed like bees.
They were flown because that's how McCoy and Spock were able to get in.
That's right. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
And they ejected those two guys at the end there. It was a lot of action. I guess there was enough of a plot in there to be Star Trek.
There really was. And what's funny is, even though there was a lot of action, they actually knew, and I was surprised with that guy from Fast and the Furious, they actually knew to tone the action down just a little bit. Once it would get so action-packed, they're like, hold on, we're going to stop, chill out a minute, and talk about how we get out of this situation. And it's like, okay, all right. Because the first two, those were action-packed movies, especially the first one, if I remember.
I think Into Darkness. Really
my gosh, the end, yeah.
Into Darkness was just nuts.
Yeah, that one was even more so. And this one, they knew how to balance it. When the action was good, it was good, but they also knew to tone it back a little bit and let the characters shine, and they all shone.
Right.
They really did. And, it was awesome.
Jayla, she was an interesting character.
Yeah, she was.
I wonder if they're going to bring her back.
I hope so, because...
now with the death of
and they said they're not going to bring back Chekhov.
Yeah, they're not going to bring back Chekhov.
Which I'm glad.
They're not going to try and replace him with a different actor, which is fine.
I'm glad.
If you watch, Kirk pulled some strings to get her into Starfleet Academy, which I kind of found that little joke at the end where she goes, do I have to wear the uniform? Yes. But she seemed happy. Oh, she's also playing the new Mummy in the new Mummy movie starring Tom Cruise.
Interesting.
She's got dark hair, and I saw a shot from the set, and they had her all in some weird garb and some funky makeup, but I'm guessing she'll be CGI'd to look even worse. Anyway, she's playing the female Mummy in the new Mummy movie. Interesting. It comes out next year. So
I liked her a lot. Whatever happened to, what's her name from the last movie? They didn't even bring her back.
No, Carol Marcus. I don't know the actress who played her, but Carol Marcus, who started on their 5-year journey. Yeah, they wrote her completely out. I don't know why. I was hoping maybe they even mention it.
Were they just trying to steer away from the second one so much?
I don't know. I'm not sure. It would have been nice. It's like, oh, well, what about Carol? Oh, we had to drop her off.
She went on a different fleet.
Or whatever, but they didn't even mention that. So
a great tribute to Leonard Nimoy. Well,
I'm going to get to that in a little bit.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Because I was like a schoolgirl when they got to that point towards the end of the movie, but we'll get to that. Some little interesting tidbits for either the hardcore fans or the not-so-hardcore fans that people may or may not have picked up in Star Trek Beyond. If you were paying attention, now this is probably not as much of a tidbit, but the name Yorktown for the space station has been used before in the series of movies. In the original series episode of Obsession, the Enterprise was supposed to deliver some vaccines to the USS Yorktown, a starship at that point, and on Star Trek Voyager, Tuvok, the Vulcan on that show, made reference that his father served on the Yorktown. Also, in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, the Yorktown is one of the ships that is disabled from the probe. And actually, Yorktown is actually the name of a U.S. aircraft carrier from World War II. Also interesting is beginning of the movie, when Kirk is walking around and he's doing his captain's log type thing and he's talking.
I really like that intro.
He said at one point early on in his log that it was their 966th day into their 5-year mission. If you think about it, it said 966th day. The original series premiered in September of 1966. 9/66.
Nice. Okay.
The USS Franklin, the vessel they used to escape from the planet and then go save the Yorktown space station and stop Crawl, had the serial number of NX326. Leonard Nimoy's birthday is on March 26.
Oh, wow.
326.
Wow.
Now, whether or not all this is just coincidence, they did this intentionally, I don't know, but there you go. During the final battle between Kirk and Crawl on the Yorktown there, as he started getting less, alien looking, he made mention, because, they made mention that he was used to serve in Mako, the military organization before Starfleet. He made mention that he helped fight in the Xindi and Romulan War, all referring back to stuff that would have happened during the Enterprise show's timeline.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Kind of nods to that part. The actress that played the Admiral on the Yorktown, her character's name is called Commodore Paris. I don't know if you picked up on that. But if you go to Star Trek Voyager, the show, one of the main characters on that show was Ensign Tom Paris.
Oh.
And during the Voyager, there was times they made mention of his past, and Tom Paris's backstory in Voyager was he had a disapproving father whose name was Admiral Owen Paris, and that his family had a long line of high-ranking officers in Starfleet. Some people are kind of wondering if maybe this is part of his connecting back to a great-grandmother or great-great-grandmother, something like that. It's kind of interesting that they used Paris.
Yeah.
And then also Kirk gives that little speech after they've been dispatched from Yorktown. He says on the shipwide announcement, he makes this statement going, "There's no such thing as the unknown, only things temporarily hidden, temporarily not understood." In the original series, TV 60 series, and during the episode The Corbite Maneuver, Kirk makes a similar speech, tells Enterprise crew, saying, "There's no such thing as the unknown, only things temporarily hidden, temporarily not understood." So it's basically they took something from the original series line that Kirk said on the Enterprise and kind of made a very small modification to it and used it in Beyond. So some little tidbits, almost all the franchises, other than possibly Deep Space Nine. But
even the Yorktown kind of looked like Deep Space Nine, didn't it?
No. That Yorktown is way more fancy than what Deep Space Nine was. I mean, if I had my choice of living on Deep Space Nine or what they showed Beyond, I'll take the Yorktown any day. Getting to what you started to talk about there, I was really happy to see they did it, especially when it got to the end of acknowledging Leonard Nimoy not being around anymore by killing off Ambassador Spock.
Yeah.
Because he gets that message on the Yorktown, those two Vulcans grab him. The only thing I regret is I didn't look at it close enough or quickly enough to see what they showed as dates, because theoretically he would have been, born and dying kind of like close to anyway. But that was kind of cool. They showing that kind of that picture that he had died, which affected the new Spock. But then you get to the very end when Zachary Quinto Spock is opening up that box that said Ambassador Spock's personal effects. Mm-hmm. And when he opened up that little case and it showed a picture
of the old crew,
of the entire old crew, I love that.
Yeah, I did too.
I was sitting there in the theater and I kind of leaned over to my wife and I was just going,
Now, was that from...
That was a picture it looks like from Star Trek 6.
6? Okay.
It looked like something around some Star Trek 6.
Yeah. Which makes sense, like a picture of them when they're
And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I did
that too. They basically were, in a certain way, not only acknowledging Leonard Nimoy as Spock, but the entire original cast, even though 3 of them are now gone, including Leonard Nimoy, but just a way of kind of like, I thought that was cool. I thought that was awesome. Whoever idea was to do that was just brilliant.
I'm sure it's Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg is amazing.
Yeah.
Like he really is.
But I love that moment.
I loved it.
I can't wait to get that on home video because I'm going to sit there and just pause that fucker right there on that because that was great. I loved that movie. I thought Star Trek Beyond was a huge improvement over Into Darkness.
Yeah.
Not that I had as big as problems as some people did with Into Darkness, but it was a huge improvement, and I think it was a step in the right direction. Mm-hmm. Have you heard? They are going to move forward with Star Trek 4.
I did.
Have you heard that?
I did.
And speaking of another, quote, Marvel Cinematic Universe guy coming back into the fold. Yes.
By the way, did we mention him in Ghostbusters? We didn't we?
No, we need to do that.
He's really funny.
Yeah, but we'll get back to him before we close out the podcast. Because what I want to do is I wrote down some good reviews and some bad reviews on Star Trek Beyond. Sure. Just thought we'd read them just for shits and giggles.
But yeah, his dad's supposed to be back as his dad. Now, we don't know how. Now, is it one of those things where it's really his dad, or is he like an alien disguise? Or
my guess is being Star Trek,
it's going to be something weird.
It's going to be a time travel episode.
You think
I would have no doubt.
Man.
Now, depending on how they do it and what kind of time travel episode they do, there are going to be some fans out there that I know are going to sit there and post, oh good, maybe they'll make this the last one and they'll reset the entire universe back the way it was and they'll stop these movies.
Yeah.
I know that's what's going to happen.
What,
guaranteed.
Are you going to bring back the old cast, half of which are dead, the other half are older than dirt?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I know what they're going to do, and I know some.
I thought everyone pretty much liked this one.
It's getting good reviews. I don't know about the hardcore fans out there yet.
Screw them.
I know.
Like, I'm tired of hardcore fans of anything, and I can be a hardcore fan.
I'll start with the good reviews. Some of the good ones. One of them is Star Trek Beyond is highly entertaining summer blockbuster for fans and casual moviegoers that pays respect to the franchise legacy. I can agree with that one. Well-paced outer space adventure is a glowing tribute to the iconic television series. Another one, Star Trek Beyond successfully straddles the line between Star Wars, high-tech, and toy merchandising and the serious ideas fostered by concept creator Gene Roddenberry. It's also a stone-cold blast. And the last one on the good side reviews. What happens when you let a comedy screenwriter and a director of boneheaded car action movies get together and steer a Star Trek movie? It's something pretty amazing, actually. At first, when I was reading that the first time, I was like, oh, wait a minute, are they slamming it? Or are they saying it's good? I took it as good.
Did he direct all of...
No, Justin Lin, I think, directed like 4, 5, and 6.
He didn't do the first one?
No. Okay. He came in like 4, 5, and 6. I think he's the one they brought it in and started when they started bringing in The Rock and kind of helped bring the franchise up, because after Tokyo Drift, it kind of...
Tokyo, I'm not a fan of the series by any means, but I haven't seen any of them after 3. If the first 2 are on TV, it's like, whatever. It's a decent action movie. There's cars. And I watched Tokyo Drift. A friend of mine said he really liked it, so he brought the DVD over, and it is awful. Like, that movie is horrible.
I had someone tell me, and I don't know how true this is, that Fast and Furious 4, 5, 6 was really their way of trying to correct what they did in Tokyo Drift.
Which is really funny, because at the end of the day, they're just like action car movies.
Yeah.
You didn't need to do that.
But anyway, I don't know how true that is. I haven't seen 4, 5, and 6 yet. That's what I've been told. Some of the bad reviews for Star Trek Beyond: roughly adventurous as a stop at a theme park information center. I don't get that one.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Yeah. Some of these reviews have to be from people who don't get the whole thing. But anyway, by constantly reminding us of previous Star Treks, the new Star Trek can never fully claim triumphant on its own accord. It is a mirror cry of the original, lost in its own nebula. On that one. This third installment is the millennial Star Trek reboot races along without an idea in its head, often recalling the silly, monster-driven final season of the 60s TV show. What the hell were they watching?
I don't know.
Because I don't get where that one comes from. So
it's not like...
I mean, if it was from the 60s, it would have been really corny and weird.
Yeah. They brought up social.
Yeah.
That's the thing that always gets me, is like the 60s show brought up a lot of
social commentary,
social issues and commentary for its time, but it was also pretty darn corny.
Yeah.
Whenever people think about the social issues in Star Trek, put it on these high regards, it's like you're thinking of Next Generation. Star Trek started that, and Star Trek broke a lot of new grounds, but it was an action show.
Yeah. The last one I got here, this is probably the best of the worst ones here, and I may say that sarcastically. Generic plot, meaningless action, overdone CGI, forgettable villain, the camaraderie is in short supply, and only Carl Urban scores.
Only Carl Urban's. God.
Oh,
what a douche.
Speaking of something I just remembered, I was talking about some of those little tidbits. Beginning of the movie where Kirk is trying to offer that peace offering to that one race of that you think was huge, but then they turned out to be like dog size, and he gets back on the Enterprise, and as he walks by Scotty, he goes, I ripped my shirt again. That was kind of a joke in reference to the old 60s show, because a lot of the shows, Kirk's shirt always kept getting ripped, so...
They can rip his shirt just to show his muscles.
Yeah. That was kind of a nod back to the original series as well. I loved it. I'll give Beyond a solid A in my book.
A or A+, yeah. It was really, really good. I loved it. I
think if they continue to move forward with Star Trek 4 in this type of fashion and start kind of getting, I don't want to say getting back, but moving towards what everyone's been expecting out of this particular series since it started in 2009, then I think this particular movie franchise has a chance to possibly go maybe 6 movies like the original cast did. I don't know. It's hard to say what they'll do in Hollywood. I mean, because obviously Chris Pine's becoming a very popular actor. Uhura, she's becoming...
Oh, man.
She's becoming very popular with Guardians of the Galaxy, and she's going to have to start filming eventually 4 sequels to...
20 sequels to Avatar. That's another one that internet dweebs like to hark on, is Avatar. Leave that movie alone. People like that movie. Is it the best movie? No. But it's still a good movie, and it was a technological breakthrough.
What I don't understand is, how does Avatar garner 4 sequels?
That's what I was getting to. I'll defend it, but I still don't see how you're going to make all these sequels out of it.
I mean, if James Cameron has this...
I think that movie did all it was intended to do, honestly.
I mean, if James Cameron has this big idea, make it into a franchise and see it go somewhere, okay, fine. But how about we take it one movie at a time and not going, the first one did so well, here's 4 more coming at you.
Yeah.
How about we get the second one out first?
Well, it's been 6 years. needs
See,
to
and that's
get on
some
this.
of the worry about some people have of it's been so long since he did the first one that by the time he actually gets the second one out to theaters, which I don't think the first one's even due out till 2018, 2019, are people still going to respond to the second one or even the third one the way they did to the first one? So there's a worry.
So what's he do? Is he trying to create more technology to make the next one just as awesome for movie experiences? Didn't he like pretty much invent these cameras?
He invented the type of camera they use to film it, and now
you got to give him credit. And like, I also love how Titanic, which again, I don't really like that movie that much. The ending is great when you see all the people die, but but like
as tragic and sad as it is,
the actual story is kind of. But the thing that's amazing about that movie, and again, that movie was another technological breakthrough. And the thing that's amazing about that movie is the whole thing was basically to fund his expedition for the real Titanic. The footage that they show you of underwater, like that's from his actual expedition. Pretty interesting. He really is.
See, I find Titanic and the movie Pearl Harbor, which James Cameron had nothing to do with.
Yeah.
I find those movies set up in a way, both those movies are kind of made in two halves.
Yeah.
You get the first half, the love story, to draw in the ladies, to make them want to be there, and the second half...
Draw in the ladies or the 8th grade girls.
Whatever the case may be. And then the second half of both of those movies are more designed why the guys are being drugged to these movies.
No.
The action, death, the destruction. Both those movies are granted two totally different type of movies in a certain sense as far as what their plot is talking about. One's talking about a ship going down in the cold waters, and another one's a dark day in American history with Pearl Harbor being bombed. But they're both set up kind of in the same way. Love story first half, and then death and destruction the second half in both of those.
Yeah. I think Pearl Harbor was Michael Bay, right?
I don't know. I'd have to look that up. I cannot tell you who did Pearl Harbor. Yep, you're right.
Bay, okay.
Directed by Michael Bay. I did not know that.
I kind of think Michael Bay followed James Cameron's blueprint.
For that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think he saw what a success Titanic was, so he followed that blueprint for adding a fictional love story at the beginning.
Yeah. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that movie now, because now, knowing that it's actually directed by Michael Bay, I'll have to go see if there's any lens flares or circling of actors around in the scene.
There's going to be some circling. Oh, speaking of, J.J. Abrams is a big fan of the lens flare. No lens flares in this Star Trek.
Yes, I noticed that.
I don't hate him for that. Sometimes they look good, but there are like times. Did he use a lot in Star Wars? I don't remember.
I think he did.
He did. There's parts.
I think he did some lens flares here and there, but it was not obvious.
There was parts in both Star Trek movies where it's like, why is there a lens flare? They're in a cave, or they're on the ship. They're in outer space. Do you know how light works? I think you're right. I think Star Wars, they had a few and they looked good. He toned it down. I like J.J. Abrams, but J.J. Abrams is...
I think if I read right, I think there's only one or two lens flares in Force Awakens.
Is there?
I think.
I can see one in my head. I might be wrong, but I think one of them was during that...
I think one is
that scene where they destroy that village at the very beginning.
Might be, and I think another one is when they show the launching of that weapon for the first time that destroys a bunch of the planets.
And that's okay. Like, I mean, if you're using it for an effect, like, that's great.
But if you're just doing it because you can.
That's the thing about J.J. Abrams, though, and I'm so glad that he did such a great job of kickstarting this series. He really did, and we can't downplay that. But, and the fact is, and he'll admit it, he's a Star Wars person, not a Star Trek person. That's why he did so well with Star Wars. But also, like, not only with his knowledge of the characters in the franchise, but also, like, if you ever watch his shows or his movies like Lost or whatever, they're not so much about, even if they're science fiction or Cloverfield, there's really not much science going on in them. It's more like spiritual or this and that, mystical. And that's what Star Wars is.
Right.
That's why he works so well in that.
Comic-Con closed out here a week or two ago. Warner Brothers showed some new trailers to some of their movies.
Yeah.
A couple were expected. One was not expected. It was a total surprise. I showed you those trailers before we started this podcast, one being Wonder Woman, the other one being Kong Skull Island, and the other one, which surprised everybody, even including at Comic-Con, they didn't know this was coming. I want to say a preview teaser trailer for the Justice League movie. What do you think of those trailers?
First off, I want to point out what a crazy world we live in where, like, 2 months after they start filming, which is 2 months after the previous movie comes out, they start filming for the sequel, and then they already have a trailer made for the sequel.
Well, actually,
like, how crazy is that?
Batman vs. Superman came out in late March 26th. They started filming like April 11th.
That's right, yeah.
Not even a month.
How crazy is that?
And now in July, you got a teaser trailer for a movie that doesn't come out until a year from this coming November.
Yeah. it's unbelievable.
Now, there's nothing wrong with what they put out. I thought it was a nice way of kind of...
Actually, I thought it was a pretty good trailer. I feel like they're ripping off, and it's crazy that we live in a world where you and I don't do it so much, but you know how like everyone likes to review trailers.
There's a few movie websites that I like to look at. The few I go to all have contrasting opinions. I like to get the good, the bad, the ugly, all with it. And there's one of them that will post constantly reactions to movie trailers.
Yeah.
If that's what they want to do, fine, that's great. But to me, I don't know what there is to review about them. Trailers are used for one thing and one thing only in Hollywood: to get you excited about their product, to put your butt in their seats,
and as far
pay
as
their
we
money.
know, most of the scenes in the trailer
Could come in the
not
first-
going to be in the movie.
I thought the little bits with the Flash was kind of fun.
I thought it looked good.
It doesn't look as dark. You notice Batman's suit is not as gray. It's a darker color than on the main suit than it did in Batman versus Superman.
Well, I feel like this trailer ripped off the and I'm not complaining, but it totally ripped off the trailer for the Avengers. Like, oh, people like the Avengers, this movie that we're already kind of ripping off. Let's rip it off some more.
If you notice throughout the entire teaser, nothing mentioned about Superman, nothing
Yeah.
mentioned of Clark. It just all dealt with Batman, Wonder Woman trying to put together the Justice League. And that was fine. It didn't give you a lot. It didn't give you anything of the movie. It just kind of gave you a taste of, this is what we've done. This is kind of where our luck is going. You do get a brief glimpse of all the other guys in their costumes, but that's about it. It was fun to see.
It didn't seem like a Zack Snyder trailer.
No. But I wonder then
didn't
again if that was intentional, though, after some of the backlash from the
I'm
previous.
sure it was. I'm sure it was.
But anyway, the Wonder Woman trailer, that looked really good.
Looked really good.
And she looks like she's going to kick some German ass during World War One.
That's another thing. It's funny to me how they're making it take place in World War One instead of World War Two.
You don't want to look like you're ripping off Captain America either. So
Which you kind of are, but
that's fine. And of course, Kong Skull Island looks interesting.
That looked interesting.
And of course, that is the true definition of a teaser trailer. I mean, that is all tease and a very quick close up of Kong's face, and then that's it. I mean,
is that supposed to be a sequel of sorts to the last King Kong?
no, this King Kong movie is not doing the quote typical damsel in distress. Kong will
does
not
it take place in the same universe.
It's taking place in the same universe as the new Godzilla movie.
Oh, it's Godzilla.
The Garth Edwards Godzilla that they had out with Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
Okay, there's that movie. Then there's this Kong Skull Island movie.
But it has nothing to do with the
It's set
Lord
in the
of
same
the Rings guys.
No, set in the
King
same.
Kong, okay.
Set in the same universe. And then we're going to get Godzilla 2. I don't remember. I think 2018, and then 2019 you get King Kong versus Godzilla. So this is what they're doing. They're setting this up to be the big monster
my
Godzilla versus King Kong.
God.
But this King Kong is also supposed to be bigger than any of the previous
He
incarnations.
did look big. Actually, yeah, now that you think of it, like they
And-
showed its face and it was huge.
And if I understand right, this King Kong will not be taken off the island. They won't kill him, obviously, and they're not doing the damsel in distress. Oh my God, got taken by an ape. They're kind of staying away from that, which is fine. I mean, I like King Kong, and as I told you before we started this, of all the monster type movies like that, I've always been more of a fan of King Kong anyway.
Have you ever seen the King Kong versus Godzilla? The
Japanese?
Yeah.
A long time as a kid, like on a Saturday morning.
I just saw it here recently, and
long time ago.
it's I'm really not too big of a fan of the Godzilla movies, but I like this one. It was pretty funny. Like, for some reason, and of course, they gave Godzilla like superhero or anime powers or something, like electricity would give him more power or something. And it's like, okay, like what?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, they're going to do a new Godzilla versus King Kong movie, which is fine. And I don't remember who, quote, technically won. Being Japanese, Godzilla versus King Kong, I'm assuming Godzilla won that battle in the Japanese version. But are they going to have
No,
it?
not really.
Or is it going to be a
They
draw?
both lost.
Or
Yeah,
they-
that's what it was.
So are they going to do it as a
They
draw
both
in
died,
this
yeah.
new one then, I guess, maybe? Because I'm assuming you don't want to kill off both characters, either one of the characters, because I'm assuming they're going to probably want to do a Godzilla 3, and if this Kong Skull Island is successful, I would assume at some point they may want to try a King Kong 2.
No.
I'm assuming it'll be more of a ooh, but no one wins, but no one loses.
I kind of want to watch the Peter Jackson King Kong.
Have you watched that at all before?
I saw it in theaters. I liked it, but it's so
The
dang long.
the first hour of that movie moves so slow.
Yeah.
Once they
It's-
get to the island, it's great.
Peter Jackson is crazy. Like, his movies. Well, you know what's funny, though, is now every movie's 3 hours long, and he started that. Now every movie's 3 hours long, so I probably wouldn't even notice anymore. Seriously, they're so
know.
long now. And
It's-
it's okay sometimes, but
Okay, a 3 hour movie can be great if when you sit down and watch it either at the theater or at home,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like it went 3 hours.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem any longer than a 2-hour
Even
movie.
like Pirates of the Caribbean were 3 hours long.
long.
You know, I love the first Pirates of the Caribbean, but like even that one felt a little long. I remember thinking that.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, the one movie that always felt to me, it's not nearly 3 hours. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes or something like that. Is Armageddon with Bruce Willis.
oh god,
Back in 98, 97. I remember
it feels like it goes on for weeks.
because I'm sitting in the theater and I had a large drink, and I'm single at this point in time in my life, and I'm sitting in the theater, I'm watching this movie, and I'm thinking, okay, they're close. I gotta go to the bathroom so damn bad. I'm thinking, oh, come on. Ooh, this gotta be the end. This gotta be the end. No, continues on. Damn. Continues on. Oh, this gotta be the end. No, damn. And it's like, oh my god, hurry up and end. So as soon as they started rolling the credits at the end of the movie, even though they hadn't faded to black, I was out the chair, running up the aisle and out the door because I had to go so bad.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it felt like that movie went on forever to me. Yeah, 3-hour movies are great if they don't feel like 3 hours.
Yeah.
If they move and they feel like, oh, it's only been 2 hours, and you realize, oh, it's been 3, fine. But when you can, of course, then again, some 2-hour movies that felt like they were 4-hour movies and never would end. So you can, I guess it depends on the movie. The Thin Red Line that came out the same year as Saving Private Ryan, the other war movie that year, was a lot shorter than Saving Private Ryan, but felt twice as long.
Really?
Oh, that movie sucks so bad.
Really?
And it's got a lot of cameos from big stars like George Clooney and some others in it. That movie just moves so slow. It is ridiculous. Any final thoughts on anything we've talked about?
No, not really.
By all means, if you're a Star Trek fan or just an average Star Trek fan, go see Star Trek Beyond. If you have not, it is worth your time and money. If you're indecisive about the Ghostbusters movie, go in with low expectations. You might be pleasantly surprised, at least more so than you might be thinking if you're hesitant on going to see it. It doesn't really compare to the original. The original's still the best, but this one's not a waste of time. You can always find James's True Believers on his YouTube or Facebook page, which you can find links to his on reggiestake.com. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook. All those links are also on my website. Glad you tuned in. Keep listening, and Reggie's Take podcast will return in number 25. We'll talk at you later.